You are tuned in to the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA, as well as the Power Chord Hour podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, however you're checking this out, a bunch of ways to check it out. But thanks for listening. I'm your host, Anthony Merchant. Very excited today. We're talking to Jason DeVore. You may know him as the singer of Authority Zero, but he has a great new solo record out now, Till the Voice Goes Out. It is out now everywhere. I've really been enjoying it. To talk to Jason, been a fan for a very long time, so get to I think I've talked to you in passing, like that, like quick 2-minute, like the merch table, like quick, hey, good show and stuff. But nice to get to talk to you like more in depth. So, Jason, how you doing, man?
Man, yeah, you too, man. And I'm trying to remember one of those times, but there's been so many times passing by the merch booth, I can't remember walking by half of them. But yeah, no, I'm doing great, man. I'm out here in Europe right now on tour. I've been out here on tour with the guys for about 3 weeks, and then just before that, we were in Canada for 3.5 weeks. So we went straight from there to here. So it's been a long summer. It's been a good, busy summer.
It's all been, if I'm not mistaken, it's all been like international touring, right? I mean, if you basically, I guess Canada's still North America, but I mean, you've basically been playing out of the States the last couple months.
Yes, we have. Yeah. The day my record came out, we just kind of briefly touched on this before we hit play. That my record came out the day that I left to fly to Canada, actually. So I've been on the road since this record came out, promoting the band and all that, and doing the best I can to push this music as well.
Very nice, very nice. Do you remember, I feel like Authority Zero tours internationally a ton. Like, do you remember the first place you guys toured outside of North America?
Yeah, well, we did Mexico. That was like, I don't know if that really counts. That we were a bunch of kids back in the day. We just kind of, went across the border and did like a weekend there, kind of here and there. But I think the first time we did across the border was, I believe it was the Sum 41 No Use for a Name tour back in 2002 or 3. We had just gotten signed to the label Atlantic Lovett Records, and the label pretty much wanted to keep us in the States, just kind of working the markets around the United States. And Canada luckily dipped into that a little bit to get us up there during the Warped tours and things like that too. So we got up there, and that was one of the first tours I remember going out of the actual US was the Sum 41 Some on Your Face tour when that album just came out with them. So it was a real good time. It was a way to get our feet wet, on a bigger platform with those guys in their home country or part of the country, and so we just had fun. It was a great experience. It was kind of wild because, again, we had just kind of hit the ground running with touring, and that was one of our first tours, to be honest with you, too.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, because we've been a band for 7 years prior to getting that record deal and then the full-length record put out. So that was all just like local house party shows, you name it, so whatever, local pubs. And so that was one of the big hit the ground running kind of tours we did, and that was kind of a way to break out of the States, too.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like you haven't stopped since. I feel like you're always touring and definitely internationally.
Yeah, we have not, man. We're the band that's done 30 years this year, and it's been consecutive 30 years. It's been a nonstop touring circuit since 2001, I believe it's been. So we've been touring probably about 250 minimum days a year since 2001.
Gee, yeah. When I think of a touring band, you really are like legitimately one of the bands that pop in my head. Like a band who truly, I have to think of how many times I've seen you guys, because there are like, you're always playing. So I'm like, oh, I forgot they played this and this. Like some bands, it's like, oh yeah, they only tour so much. There's only so many chances you get to see them. Whereas I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I saw you this time and this time. So yeah, it's a touring band.
It's kind of funny. It's one of those things. Is it good for you sometimes, or is it too much? Like when you play around your local city too much, you're like, is it better to do like maybe 3 shows a year rather than 300 shows a year? And it starts kind of turning into that with touring, it seems like sometimes, because I literally feel like we were just here in Europe. I mean, we're going to some of the same venues, and I'm seeing old friends that like run some of these venues now, and you've made such good buddies throughout the years. It's like, hey, yeah, we're right back to where we just seemed to have been moments ago. And that was a year ago, granted, but it also makes you realize how fast time really does go by when you're keeping busy.
Are you one of those people, like with that, for touring so much, do you kind of know your schedule ahead of time? Like, do you kind of know where you'll be January 24th of like next year? Do you have that kind of schedule?
Absolutely. We do.
Weird.
We didn't used to. So your life's kind of already planned out for you, which is a fantastic thing, because back in the earlier days of touring, things would come up like 2 months before or a month before even sometimes, and you couldn't plan your life. You couldn't plan your family time. You couldn't plan your anything else you wanted to do besides just the band. because you'd have to cancel it because something really important would come up. But nowadays, for the past, I'd say probably 10 years or so, we've gotten really good with scheduling, better booking agents, a much more solid management team, and all this stuff too. So things are really lined out essentially at least 3/4 of the year in advance. You know what you have to look forward to. You can book around that, plan around that. Again, with this solo career now that I've done for 18 years already, which is crazy, I can plan what I may or may not be able to do as far as touring on that goes with free time that's available, so to speak. But then I have to also equate into that time with my wife and family and things like that too. So it's really a juggling act, but it does give you a better idea of what you can and cannot kind of work with, rather than just say, well, we'll see what happens. I probably can't. We'll see. Maybe I can go to Christmas this year. We'll find out.
Well, let's get into that. Like you mentioned, the solo side of things. Let's talk about the new record. When did the work, the album's out now, but when did the work kind of begin on this? Like, when did you kind of be like, all right, time to like do a new solo record? When did that kind of all initially start for you?
It really didn't start as an idea to do a full record, to be honest with you. I was going to record my song Courage that I've done a few times over with a band, as well as my first solo record back in 2006. And I wanted just to make that song the really epic version of it that I always imagined it could be or would be. Was like, full on like Braveheart symphonies in the background, like just battlefields, like tin whistles from Ireland, all these things. And so I did that. I went into the studio with my friend Kristen Taylor in Underdog Studios in Mesa, and we just had fun with it. We just kind of got into it. And then my friend Yodam, who is the singer of Useless ID, who I'd met just through the touring circuits and things like that too, he was on a record label called Double Helix Records in Scottsdale, Arizona, doing his own solo thing. And they came up that he mentioned my name to them, like, have you heard of Jason DeVore from Authority Zero? They're like, oh yeah, we've heard Authority Zero. That's cool. He's like, no, have you heard his solo stuff? And they're like, oh, we didn't know he did solo things. And he's like, well, you got to check that out because it's kind of cool. It's like, it's a lot in the vein of like what you guys would be into promoting and pushing, given the way you want to go about pushing this label locally, because they really wanted to be well known for their work ethic as a local label, working with local, bands, businesses, everything of that alley, to make sure it was like a solid Arizona staple record label. Rooted there at least. And so they did. They came in, reached out to me. They saw a show, an acoustic gig, and then we started talking. They said they would love to sign me and put out a record for me. And I was like, or with me, I guess. With me is a better word. And I was like, wow, I've not been approached by a label in 20 years. So this is interesting to me, and I'm ecstatic. It's like, and obviously I was very nervous at the same time because the last one fell apart, with the band and all that back in the day. So I was very... I had my reservations, obviously, and my downsides of things that have happened throughout the years with given those contractual moments of record labels and whatever. So we felt each other out quite a lot, but it was a fun time getting to know those guys, Jeff and Em, the label owners. And when they presented the idea of doing that, we agreed upon doing a record. I started digging into my catalog of like old songs on my phone that I'd written little blurbs on or recorded little blurbs while on tour or anything since like 2020, so 2019 even. Wow. So I was going through this whole Rolodex of audio files that I was like, okay, do I even have songs? Do I have anything going on? Because I just released not too long before that our new Authority Zero record, Ollie Oxenfree, and I'd pretty much said everything I felt like I had to say at that point in time as far as like new material goes. Like not a lot had happened, it seems, since I'd poured it all out there. So luckily, I was going through that catalog and I found some things. I was like, that was a really good track. I'm like, that was a good chorus. If anything else, that was a good storyline and had some good content. So I started busting those up and diving into those a bit more. And during that transition, I also went through some personal changes in life, which also led to helping new material come to life in a very positive way. And so it became this roller coaster of emotions and songs that became a collective unit, becoming this record. So you get kind of some old storyline meets the new storyline and the working of progressive things throughout that time.
Oh, very nice. It all weaves together very well. The whole album, very cohesive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, man. Yeah, I didn't know if it would, honestly, when I was listening to it every day we'd record a track and I was like, this sounds nothing like that same guy that just recorded the last song. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be taken, how it's going to even work together. But the cool thing I've noticed about it is like with production, so long as you have the same something of a concept of sorts in mind after it's all laid out, and you have reasonably the same overall view of production value and moments and sounds, I guess, even as a whole complete piece, anything will be pretty cohesive in the end, and it'll just really, I think, make for a more exciting record and a more progressive sounding piece of work in general.
You kind of touched on something in there, which I actually had written down and kind of jumped to that. Like, you talking about kind of going back to song ideas and things, you've kind of those voice memos, like from the road and stuff, going back to, again, with a band who tours as much as you do. I mean, how are you writing on the road? Because I would imagine at some point too, when you got to put out albums, but you tour as much as you do, sometimes I feel like you might be forced to, like, how is your relationship with that? Because I know some musicians don't want to touch a guitar on the road. I know you have one behind you, so it's like,
I do.
Like a very nice looking one. But yeah, what's your kind of relationship with writing on the road? Do you do it? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
I love it, dude. I mean, honestly, I don't plan to write whenever I do write. When I do write, it just kind of comes to me, and then I start just, again, taking voice notes, or a melody will pop in my head, or lyrics, or an idea. I'll see something out here on the road, and it just sparks something. And so it's like, the cool thing about it really is I've only been forced or pressured, more so feeling, to do one record. I mean, we had, in the beginning stages with the band, at least, we had the 2-record deal with the Love Atlantic thing. So you needed to write a second record. That was more of the pressing ones, I would say, because, you just wrote what you felt was a record that took you about 10 years to write throughout your beginning of your band, up until that time you actually recorded it for the third time as a full-length professional record. So old songs were already written, and it was like basically in the bag. And then when people enjoyed those songs, then you're like, oh crap, now people actually want to hear some more stuff from us. And now people actually know we're a band, and we have to do a pretty good job and stand up to what we did before, if not one up that record. So that was a bit of a test, obviously, but since then it's always been like, we did records like 5 years between. The solo records were always like just kind of free for all. I would do it whenever I wanted to. That's what was cool about the solo record thing, is I did it when I had songs written. I'd write songs. If there weren't songs there, I would not put a record out. Up until Persona non grata was the one that was one of the pushing records. We did a record called Broadcasting to the Nations with the band, and we wanted to keep the momentum of that going, so we jumped right back in the studio like 9 months later, and I had nothing to write about. I was like, I have nothing to say. I'm like, things are cool. Like, I'm not pissed. I'm like, I've got it off my chest. I'm like, I haven't lived enough right now, it seems like, to write about something of substance. But come to find out that when Under the Pressure, I wrote all the lyrics for that record the day before and the day of having to go in the studio and record them. And because of that, I didn't have a chance to overthink anything or to put sugarcoating on it. I got to write directly from my heart. I got to write about really personal stuff going on with me. So it almost became a solo record, which is what the solo records ended up being, is a straight just honesty and brutal, here's how I feel right now, rather than like, it's all gonna be okay. It's more like, today fucking sucks. I'm sorry if I can't swear, but today's okay. I'm like, today sucks, and this is how I feel about it, and right now things aren't cool, but that's kind of how that record was for me. And it was cool being the fact that it kept it very honest, and it was, again, not a lot of overthinking. The only thing I overthought a little bit was making sure I didn't use the same wordage, because I hate using the same words and song to song to song, and at all, really, typically on any said record over and over, over again, more than once or twice, if even that.
For you, like, when you do normally record, kind of talking about that, where like, by the sounds of it, when you're recording that album and you're writing the day of and the day before, you don't have time to do 5 takes of a song or 5 ideas. But like, given when you are normally in studio mode and you have, a substantial amount of time, are you someone who, like, can you do that where you go like 7 takes of a song, or are you normally more like first take is best take? Where are you normally on that spectrum when time's not really of the essence?
I'm a pretty hardcore perfectionist. Weirdly enough, it's like one of those things that, so given, if I don't have the time, I really try and make sure that I'm on top of my game, and I go in there prepared. Even if it's not lyrically, I'm at least prepared vocally, to where I can, like, deliver what I'm trying to get across with the right emotion and the right context. But then, it'll be one of those things. I'll typically listen to it that night. The next day, I'll listen to it after I recorded that day, go back in the next day after making some adjustments, rewording some things, and then do another take, that kind of thing. But typically the producers that I've worked with throughout time, the solo record aside, it's been like they'll do like typically 4 takes. They'll comp a track. They'll let you listen to the stuff they put together of the best parts they think are there, and then let you listen to it, and then you can say, yeah, no, I want to re-sing that part or whatever, you know. But with the solo stuff, man, I mean, it's always been, again, free reign. I can just go in and take my time, do what I want, you know, do what I want when I want to do it. A lot, even with this record, even though this is like the more professional record, the first one I've really been like, I want to take this a little bit more seriously to the next level of an actual artist, you know, a solo artist as such, and not just a side project kind of thing. Still took a lot of time doing the tracks and re-recording. But, and again, that's where the label came in as the biggest support team, because they kept saying to me, they're like, if it's not done, it's not done. If you're not happy, you're not happy. We want you to make sure this is the record you've always wanted to make, because you told us that in the beginning. You said, what are your expectations with this record? I said, I just want to make the best record I've ever made in my life. And that's you know, Authorities Do and otherwise, to this point in my life, at least, you know. I want to do everything that I can to make it the most exciting, the most exhilarating, the most emotional, up and down, and just make sure it sounds sonically super sound and stands up to the rest of the catalogs.
I think it worked. I mean, I think the new record sounds great. I mean,
thank you.
Job well done on that.
Thank you, man.
Label supportive, yeah, not like, hey, cough it up. Where's the record? Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
where is that thing?
Yeah, dude, they were all about like the piece of art, the working with me, making me really feel good about what I was doing, and like supporting me. And it's, again, not like nothing I've experienced in my life before. Even when we got the label back in the day, it was all for money. It was all for, you know, making them some money and ulterior motives a lot of times. You know what I mean? So with this being such a special thing and local and like family based and oriented and like caring about it and the artist for the right reasons and supporting that, I can't express to you how much they do that. It's like, I wish people could experience this that want to have a record label, because it's like, this is the way it should be. No, it blows my mind. Yeah, they're very important. They're very cool.
A lot of good bands too. Really good label. A lot of good bands on double.
Yeah,
really good.
Oh, dude, they don't fail on getting good artists either. You know, that's the thing, is they really take into consideration who they put on their label, I think, and they make sure that they're stoked on them, you know, and that they're excited to back them, and because it's an extension of themselves, you know, really. So I think they're really cool about picking the bands they decide to work with.
Nice. Yeah, they're not just signing anything like, oh, that might sell us a couple records, like, let's go with that.
Yeah, you know, I think they're very open-minded to all things across the board, but I think they have a really cool family idea in mind when they approach different artists.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah.
You know, kind of interesting with the new solo record. I feel like personally, like overall, it has a good, like, I don't know, it has a good summer vibe to it, I would say. Like, I've listened to it a lot walking around, like when it's been nice out lately, and I don't know, I think it works for the time it's been released. I mean, was there any intention? Was that intentional at all, or is that just a happy coincidence kind of?
It's maybe a little both, I guess. You know, I mean, it was one of those things as far as like, I got a song on there called I'm on a Beach, obviously. That's very summer friendly.
Very fitting, yes.
But I wrote that down in Mexico, like, 2 years ago or something, on a family trip. And the release of that was intentional. I wanted to make sure that was the summer release, because I really pictured that being a big summer jam, you know, and I was like, if that comes out in like February, it's going to go over people's heads. And, you know, like, it's all about timing with that thing, you know, even with releases in general that we have planned coming up. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, again, a lot of the songs, they are, you know, seemingly on a darker side of things. And a lot of those came from the earlier writings that I was doing, because that was when I was going through a pretty hard time. I was, you know, having a hard time with alcohol, you know, and this is the thing I keep on bringing up that comes up in my interviews, is I quit drinking alcohol 3 years ago on September. And back in the day, that was, a lot of these songs were during those trying times and those difficult times. When I was out here in Europe, weirdly enough, my song Count Me In, I wrote just at a place I was at 4 days ago in England, outside of the venue. So it was kind of reminiscent, and I was having some flashbacks of writing the lyrics actually in that van right before showtime. And so taking those darker times and then that transition of into, you know, the sobriety life and all this, and just seeing, I guess, the lights come back on and all of that, like, everything got a lot brighter, And a lot of those songs are where you start hearing those summer vibes, I think, from, is because like there's a lot more happening rather than just like, what the fuck. It's much more like things are cool, right on, here's life again, and this is fantastic. Let's go. A rejuvenation of sorts.
With kind of going to those past songs, like the darker ones and stuff, like going more, I guess going back to your catalog like that, do you feel it all? I don't know if detached is the right word, but I mean, do they still feel like, I mean, obviously you wrote them, but does it feel like a whole different person wrote them, or do you still do they still resonate with you? You know what I mean?
They a little bit of both. They really do. It's like it resonates with me in that I feel bad for that guy. I really feel bad for how much and how long I put up with it and dealt with things in certain situations and kept drowning himself to try and just move on and get through the day, rather than facing things head on a bit more in some situations, and allowing himself the chance to live and be free of a lot of these shackles and things like that, like that too. So I feel detached quite a lot. Again, I look back and I'm like, like, wow, poor fucking guy. Like that sounds painful. And it was, and it was like, but it just takes those hard things to get to the next place, sometimes, and that you're just kind of lucky you did kind of come to that place and work through it. And I'm weirdly enough kind of happy they all happened, because I learned a lot through it all. And it's brought me to a way cooler place and understanding of where I don't want to be again, and ways to deal with things rather than just putting them aside and taking them head on rather.
Well, that's kind of an interesting point too, because I feel like that is almost a document of like, if you ever, I guess, need a reminder of those things.
Yeah.
Like, there's a document of like, do you want to go back to? Do you want to relate to those? You know what I mean? You really
Exactly.
You then want to be reattached to them. It's like maybe it's a good personal reminder of that.
It absolutely is, man. It's all a diary. This whole thing is, this whole life of music is a complete diary of ups and downs and all arounds. I even said this, as far as the band goes, I even said in the last interview I did was, Authority Zero isn't life. Life makes Authority Zero. Because without these stories, there would be no content to write about, and this band wouldn't exist, because that's what I have actual depth to write about, anything that is relatable with this group and what keeps it alive.
Well, that is I think that's a very interesting point, because I feel like I can even relate to that. Like I work in radio, and I do a bunch of things where sometimes you just need fodder from your life. You just need, where it's like, if you're not doing anything, if you're just going from work to home and not doing anything, it's like, what can I bring up? Where it's like, if I'm going out and, I don't know, hiking that week, or going to some concerts, or playing music with friends or something, you have to live a little. And I think that is interesting with songwriting too, because I mean, how many times can you keep going from like the wishing well of when you were 17 or something? You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I'm sure you can in songs, but I'm sure you don't always want to just be a nostalgia fest. You want to write about current things or things you currently feel, You
do, always. I mean, that's the thing, is I can't help myself in doing that. It's like I try not to close myself off from any ideas that come to mind, silly as it may be, or as depressing as it may be, or dark as it may be, or fun or happy as it may be. Is that once again leads back to the solo record. It's all across the board of pure emotions, time and place. That's what I felt that day. Let's dive deeper into that, and weirdly and cool enough, as time goes on, because you go through different transitions in life. Even though you started a song this way, if you go back, if you leave it alone for a minute, you come back to that, it becomes this metamorphosized, completely different, like from a happy place to like a full life's journey within one song, rather than just a moment in time.
That's heavy. That's kind of heavy.
I'm sorry. That's kind of how my brain works these days, man. A lot. It always kind of has, but it's a much clearer process of that these days, I guess, too.
I like that. It gives depth to everything. It makes me not think that you're just like, throwing a song together or something. That makes it be like, okay, there's substance obviously to this.
Here's a good
out.
Here's a good example. Guys, I'm on a beach. Okay, that song sounds like it's just about having good times, getting messed up. I'm partying with my friends on the beach, but there's no one around. What's the storyline behind this? What's really going on in this thing? If you'll notice in the video, if anyone's seen the video, it gets a little deeper than that. The song is, I'm on a beach and there's no one around. That could also be reminiscent of, you're reminiscing of times gone past, like way back in the day when you and all your friends were hanging out together, partying it up. and there was a lot of people around you all the time. You're always getting rabbed and getting sloshed. And now you're the last guy sitting on the beach and there's nobody around you except empty bottles of booze. If you watch the beginning of the video, and then throughout that journey of the song, you'll see, at least in the video, it gives a better perspective of that. At least you'll see me going on this journey, trying to pick up the pieces of my life, finding little things along the way. You see little fragments of things that have been left behind, even though some of them are delusions and illusions that you're seeing because you're dehydrated on the other side of it and maybe hungover. It's like there's like a blue ball and a red ball, in the video that I cake both of them, like the red pill, the blue pill. Life is what you make it. The creation, the journey you go on, the paths you choose will take you to the places you ultimately will be. So things like that. It's like that whole album is riddled with deeper things of that nature if you listen carefully to the lyrics and take a different viewpoint.
You do. I will say, and I actually haven't seen the music video yet, but that did cross my mind listening to that, where it's like and there's no one around line, where I'm like, oh yeah, like I guess you could take this song a couple different ways. Like you really could take it a few different, and you do that thing where I don't even know if it's in I don't really know if it's in major or minor, but it's just like a song that has like poppy major chords. Then you listen to the lyrics. It's like classic Smiths or something, where happy chords, and like then you listen to the lyrics and go, oh Christ, no, that's not a happy go lucky song at all.
Yeah, then I killed the cat, and it's like, but it's all good,
Yeah, like you did. I mean, like a form of that. I do feel like you kind of did it. I did kind of pick up on that in the song. I'm like, it's a happy, again, summertime vibe, great song for walking around or being on a beach or something. But that part where, it's like, it sounds like a party, but then you bring up like no one's around. Like, it's just you.
So where it initially stemmed from, and I'll leave this song at that, is like I was on that family trip in Mexico a couple years back with my lady and her folks, and I'd quit drinking, and it was my first time down to Mexico since I had, on the same beaches that I got up at like 5 a.m. to go now on a jog, and I was down there with nobody on the beach except for myself, and the sun was coming up, and I was just sitting there reminiscing of the old times, and the same beach again, where me and my friend would be like still just now going to bed, from a long night in Mexico down at Rocky Point, and I was like, man, I'm on a beach. And I look around, I was like, there's no one around. And I was like, light bulb. I ran upstairs like 6 a.m., woke up the people in the house, got my guitar, wrote that song, at least the gist of it in like probably 10 minutes. And I was like, it was a joke. It was kind of a joke. And then as I dove deeper into it, lyrical content, it got more of a storyline. But
it's a highlight of the album for sure. I mean, it makes sense why it's been a single and everything. Like totally, it's definitely one of the best on the records, though.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I was going to ask too, because like we're talking about how like you do go through different emotions on this record. You also have like, some of these songs are older than other ones. It's not like they're all written in like one session. Was like the sequencing easy? Because I feel like the album all flows together well, but I mean, did it flow together well at the start? Was that a difficult thing to sequence? Like,
yeah, like I say, it was kind of all over the place as far as like the sound, the sounds go and the different styles of the music. So it was definitely like in my head, I was like, I don't know if this works together or not. Some of this sounds like it should be like this other album with this whole catalog of songs. This one's a singer-songwriter section. This is the Irish folk section over here, et cetera, et cetera. But then at the end, it became a big production thing where working with Bob Hogue in the end with the mixing and the final touches of the record, it all became a really collective, cool piece. But it was a matter of arranging that I think helped that a lot too. I think if you crammed all the acoustic songs in the beginning and then put all the other stuff toward the end, it would be kind of a weird, that should have been two records kind of thing. But I think that the way that we all made our own song listings, the label, myself, as well as Bob, and we came together and like kind of compared notes. After we'd finally each gotten those individual lists put together, it really wasn't far off from what we all were thinking. So that was kind of where it got easier. At first it was like, I don't know where to start, but then it really came together really nicely with the three of us coming together and collectively having close to the same idea.
So kind of going off of that, with the sequencing of the record and, it being kind of difficult and stuff, and it came out great. But I mean, have you played any solo shows since this came out? Like, have you played any of these songs live or no?
I have, but it's tough because I did go pretty deep into production. As you can hear when you hear the record, it's like horns in the album. Now there's a full drums. It's like symphonies. And that's one thing too with Bob Hogue and the end of it all, and with Kristen as well in the beginning, just getting experimental with instruments in the studio. Again, once Double Helix was like, make the record you want to make, I was like, let me call some friends. I got a catalog of professional guys I've been working with, talking with locally here for ages now. So I hit them all up. But I mean, yeah, I have played the songs out and done shows, but just straight acoustic singer-songwriter style, like myself and the guitar. And I do intend to get a full band together toward the end of the year and actually do some live shows with the full production to get people the exact album kind of like idea of what the album sounds like on a live scale too. Yeah, because I think that'd be something really cool to come together. I'm gonna need a pretty big stage and a lot of a lot of space, given if I want to try and cover all the instruments in there. But it'll be really cool once we get it all together.
Well, the kind of going into that, I was asking too is, for doing those songs solo, how about making a set list? We're talking about sequencing. How is it making a set list? Does it get any easier doing them acoustic like that? I mean, where it's all kind of, like you're saying now, it's all kind of stripped down and just you and the guitar. I mean, does that make it any easier? Kind
that
of
makes it
together.
It does, yeah. I mean, when I do my solo shows, I don't do set lists because I mean, I really just feed off the audience and like, yeah, it's just better. It's easier for me that way. I can kind of feel the vibe of the room. I can feel what the audience is doing, and feeling if it's more of like an Irish pub kind of feel. I'm just gonna instantly want to get more rowdy with some of the till the voice goes out, so like the wafoos or whatever on the record, the more intense, fun ones, and then ease them into some of the more soft spoken. Let's have a seat and talk about things kind of songs. So yeah, I just really feel the audience out. I never make a set list with the solo stuff. It just makes it easier and much more fun for me to where again I could just enjoy the moment and the ride of the evening rather than forcing the moment down people's throats.
When you do like with Authority Zero, are you guys pretty more? I mean, it's more than one person. Obviously, it's a lot easier to do that with one person. Like, is that one a little more like where it's like, all right, here's our set list, like know what we're playing, and a little, like that.
Yeah, we're on the set list game. But back in the early days, the band didn't have a set list thing. We'd just be like, let's just go from the hip, Then when we started trying to be a little more professional, we actually decided to do set lists and we're like, okay, now we got to probably start thinking about this a little more and knowing what's coming up next, and we're not just doing 20 minutes of dead air time between songs trying to sort things out.
So yeah, I feel like the more records you put out, the harder it is, because now if you don't think about it, now you're leaving huge spots out of the set or out of the catalog because you're just going off what you can think of off the top of your head, basically.
Yeah, and it's usually like the new stuff, because that's the most fresh thing in your mind, and so we do that, like you say, with that intent and purpose because of the fact that we want to play. Given we just put out our 9th studio album, I think it's our 9th. Yeah, we want to make sure that we have our old fan bases, obviously, we have our old fan base. We've also got a brand new fan base. But we want to make sure we don't get so tied up with the brand new fan base that we're, bumming out the old school cats, because like we're kids as well. We go to shows. We used to, especially more so. And you want to hear those songs that got you psyched when you were younger, and got you into the band in the first place. And, it's a bummer, but sometimes the good songs aren't as good, or the new songs aren't as good as the old ones. They really aren't. It's like you don't have that pure youthful angst that you used to have. You don't have that that honesty without overthinking songs. And we get that. And it's like we want to make sure those kids that are now adults and their kids are now almost adults, even, which freaks me out, are also getting that experience and remembering, if anything else, the nostalgia of those days. And like they're still around, so they obviously still listen to the new stuff too. And so we really try and get it across the board and do like a 2-song per record set kind of thing, if not maybe 1 or 2 more off the other early stuff.
No, it seems like I always think about that with bands, because it's not like the longer you go, it's not like you get less songs. Your catalog only becomes more vast. So it's like, as an artist too, I get why you'd want to play more modern stuff. But like you're saying, you also want to play things people remember, like really, they want to hear that song they've been waiting years to hear and stuff. But that balance of it, so much easier if you have like 3 records, and it's probably like, oh, okay. Same with no set list. If you have 2 records or even just 1, probably a lot easier to remember 12 songs. Just go like, all right, that one. Whereas like, if you have 100 songs to choose from, then it has to be real hard to just try to, represent each era of things. You know?
Which is kind of funny. You think the more songs you have, the more it'd be easier to be like, oh, I'll just play whatever comes to mind. But when you have that many songs, nothing comes to mind ever. Like you draw a blank. You're like, I have 55 songs in my brain right now, and I can't think of one of them. It's like, it's crazy.
I could see that being a problem.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, man.
Going back to the new record, where did you record that? Where was the new album recorded at?
Recorded in two places, actually. It was recorded at Underdog Studios with Kristen Taylor and Ricardo over at Underdog in Mesa. That's where it all originated. And then it went to go to just mixing at Bob Hoag's studio at Flying Blanket in Tempe, or sorry, Mesa as well. He's also Mesa. But from there, we started doing re-recordings, adding more elements and recording more stuff. And then we started kind of leveling it up more and more and more, honestly. So it really got the recording and love from both studios almost tenfold on each.
That's pretty cool. Bob Hoag,
Yeah.
too, I feel like he's played on a bunch of different, I think he's done a lot with like the Ataris and stuff. And I feel like he does like a lot of back, like true producer, like goes in there and adds things and plays on it and stuff.
That was him. Yeah, that was him for sure. And he really is a great producer, man. He's got a very cool drum sound. He's got a very cool ear for like classic. He's a very classic guy. You know, his classic thing is all the way down to like cars and vintage. You know, his gear is vintage. His cars are vintage. His clothing is vintage. He prides himself on vintage, and he's just a vintage dude. And so that comes through on his records too with his sounds. He's got a big old school horror type of sound catalog plugin in his computer system of like old horror screams or this is what they recorded this old horror film on. This kind of sound is what they used. So we dive into that a lot, you know, and which is really cool, man. Okay, this is gonna be a fun little segue into this moment of the record. Because I told Bob when I got in there, I said, I want this song. I've come to find out I don't want to just do this singer-songwriter record thing, this acoustic thing that's boring. Clearly there's a lot going on. I want this to sound just cinematic. I want every song to sound cinematic. I want it to sound, because I'm big into like actual cinema myself. Like I have been since I was a kid. I love going to big blockbuster films. I'm not a big fan of Hollywood per se, but I love big action-packed films and visuals and effects and all of that stuff. I wanted to work for DreamWorks when I was a kid, you know, in the art department of things. So I've had a really big love of that. And so it's kind of cool that me telling him, I want these songs to sound cinematic, each song to sound cinematic. I want to hear this song in a movie. I want to hear it during this love scene. I want to hear this during this epic part of like, again, Braveheart moment. I want to hear it, you know, the saddest part of the song where the guy just lost his mother and he's, you know, becoming victorious throughout it all and finding his, you know, long lost brother, and it makes things cool. You know, whatever the case may be, is things like that I wanted to shine through with this record sonically. And that tied in with his love of old school cinema. It was a really cool, once I said that, something really clicked between the two of us. It was like a really cool movie making soundtrack type experience.
That's the first time working with him, with Bob Hoag? Or have you
It was my second time with him. I have another side band called the Bollocks, which is an Irish folk punk band. Oh, nice. And we transitioned that into a band called the Deadlies because that band broke up. But me and my friend Keith from Dublin, Ireland, we stuck together and we did this thing called the Deadlies. We went and recorded a couple tracks with him on that. And that was my first time getting to really work with him. And but it was kind of short-lived at the same time too. So this is my first time really being in there for probably 2 months, almost, even maybe, you know, between tours. Yeah, going in daily.
Jeez. So I was
wondering, we had
you worked on it.
Yeah, we worked on this a long time. It's been a long time in the process because, again, touring, being gone, moving all of the files from one studio to another studio, re-editing, refixing moments that were not maybe cut the way they should have been cut, to redo a lot of things again to align them with new things that were being put together on top of what was there. A lot of things needed to be redone. Some of the drums were one of those things. Bob got in the studio and played some drums on some stuff too.
Oh, nice.
You know, yeah. So there's a lot that went into this record, like a lot of people's talents, a lot of people's time and energy and collective efforts. And it's pretty crazy when you look back on how much really did. And it's what, yeah.
No, nice. Again, the new record sounds great. So, I mean, job well done. I feel like all that hard work paid off. Didn't come up short, came up, you know, really good album.
Thank you for that.
You know, as we start closing this out, you know, you did mention, like we were talking about earlier, you know, with the intention of maybe getting a full band together and maybe playing some shows for this. I mean, that was kind of my question, is like, you know, if you thought of this as just kind of a studio project, kind of one-off thing, you know, you do a solo record, you kind of, you know, you put it out, but you get back to a 30-0 and stuff, or if this was more of something you kind of wanted to, you know, I guess kind of promote it a bit, do stuff with it. I mean, it does sound like that. It sounds like your intention is to do more than just release this album and then just kind of let it exist, basically.
Very much so. I mean, that's what I've done with the first 3 records, the first 3 solo records, and this one was full intent of doing something bigger and broader with it, to the scale of like not making it just a side project, but making it an actual project, an intentful thing to be putting out, promoting, having a life of its own, and becoming a source of its own to tour on, in between the Authority stuff, and just taking this piece of art or whatever, this idea of songs and music and just direction, and giving that as much love as I have the band all these years, and building that, which I have been from the ground up, on its own, and giving it more legs, and being able to do that equally as much as Authority, maybe half and half throughout the year, to really grow the solo career also. So I'm looking forward to doing that and getting a band together. And I think touring of this new album, because of my year being so busy this year with Authority, will probably start in Europe next January. There's been some talks of some pretty cool European solo tours going on with me and another artist I can't talk about yet because I'm not sure. But I'm excited to get out there and really push this as a solo artist as well.
That's exciting to hear you're going to do more with it. Like, it's cool. It'd be cool to hear that you might get a chance to see you live and all that. It's too good of an album to just kind of, I feel like, again, release and just kind of be like, oh, hey, like I put that album out and it's like, maybe I'll do another one in 5 years kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. That's how I feel too. And I think that's how the label feels. And it's really been the sole focus was to like, let's do this and do it right. Let's get out there and present you as a solo artist, sorry, and get you on stages and performing this in front of an audience, new audiences and whatever, just to see how far you can really go with this thing, and rather than just, again, the side project thing.
Well, we are about halfway through the year. I mean, what else do you have? I guess for the rest of the year, the near future in the world of the solo stuff, Authority Zero. What do you kind of have coming up where people should maybe keep an eye out for?
For everything with my solo stuff, please go to JasonDeVore.com. I'm going to start getting my dates up there because I am going to start doing some stuff in the Midwest in August. When I'm in my off time again from the touring with Authority. September, I'll be all over Northeast Canada with the band again, covering all that with the band all through September. October, I go back home. I'm planning on flying out to Florida and doing a run of Florida shows solo, just acoustic, just to keep it easy, to at least get out and promote the record out there. For probably a week and a half or something like that. So keep an eye out for some Florida shows. And then come November, we're doing a West Coast tour with the Mad Caddies out across California. Nice. So that'll be cool for about 2.5 weeks. And then December, we go to Japan again. And then the cool thing about Japan is, because Japan is cool by itself, but from there, there's also talks of me going out there on tour solo and staying out there after the band goes home and doing a solo tour with Kaleo from Pepper, possibly, and Eric Rami from Revolution. So that might be a little solo tour we get together post the Authority Zero tour out there, which will take us from Japan to Guam to Hawaii and then back home right before Christmas.
My God. Does jet lag, is that still a thing for you, or can you just adapt to this? I mean, you go so many different, and it's not like just this year. I feel like you're always kind of, doing, I mean, again, touring all around.
Yeah, it's just life, man. You just, your body adapts to it. You get used to it. It just becomes a part of, you just feel like that's just how you're supposed to feel. It's like if you're tired, of course you're tired. That's just how you feel about this time of day. It's like if you can squeeze a nap in, you always try and squeeze a nap in when you can to get rest where you can, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated. If I was still drinking alcohol, I don't know how the fuck I would do this, honestly. Like, I don't know how I did it for so many years. I think I was just younger, so my body was feeling better. But like now it's like I do so much, I almost do twice as much as I used to do. And I could not imagine doing any of this if I was not to the ability of like using the rest I do have to try and put 3 times the amount of energy into it.
I mean, Jason, it's been great talking to you. I mean, again, you want to tell people your website, and I mean, also your social media, all that, where to find the new album, your Authority Zero stuff, all that good stuff. Plug away.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. JasonDeVore.com does have all of my links on it, to go to my Instagram, to my Facebook, to my TikTok, to my Cameo, all those things. But I do want to say, please go individually in case those things are down on my links. Please go to my Instagram and just follow me on my official Jason DeVore with the blue check mark. You'll see it there. That's where I do a lot of my updates from touring, solo and with the band. Facebook is just official Jason DeVore. And then TikTok is just Jason DeVore as well. come follow me there for live performances that I'll do on the road, like I just did this afternoon, this evening, I guess, before this interview, and just fun special things that I don't typically do on the other social networks.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I mean, great talking to you. Is there anything we missed? Anything else to let the good people know before we close this out?
Yeah. There will be a new Authority Zero album coming out later this year as well.
Nice.
That's coming out toward the end of the year for a 30-year anniversary commemorative kind of thing. So we've already been in the studio recording that this year between touring and solo records and all that as well. So that's already in the works of getting pressed on vinyl. So keep your eyes out for that.
I don't know how you do all of it. The more, I mean, I know you're busy, but after interviewing you, like even more so, I'm like, I don't know where you find the time to do all these things and juggle all.
I don't either, man. Honestly, I don't know, but I do love it. I love it wholeheartedly. So until the voice goes out.
Nice. Well, again, if you're listening to the podcast, go grab the record. I mean, if you're listening to the radio show, go grab the record too. But we'll play it for you right now. And we'll play it all till the voice goes out. I'm Anthony Merchant talking to Jason DeVore right here on the Power Chord Hour.